I thought my brother's wedding would be the perfect family reunion. Instead, I found myself face to face with his mistress, who decided to humiliate me in front of 500 guests. What happened next changed everything and showed me what real family loyalty looks like. Before we dive into this incredible story of betrayal, loyalty, and unexpected justice, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now let me take you back to that unforgettable day. You know that feeling when you think you're walking into a fairy tale, but it turns out to be a nightmare? That's exactly what happened to me at what was supposed to be the wedding of the century. My name is Melissa, and I'm about to tell you how one day changed my entire perspective on family, loyalty, and what it really means to have someone in your corner. It all started 3 months before the wedding when my brother Andrew called me with the news. He was marrying Caroline, a woman from one of those old money families that practically built half of Manhattan. The kind of family where their vacation homes have vacation homes, if you know what I mean. Andrew was over the moon, and honestly, so was I. Despite our complicated relationship growing up, I wanted him to be happy. You see, Andrew and I have always had this weird dynamic. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Everything came easy to him. School, sports, business deals, you name it. Meanwhile, I had to fight for every single achievement, every ounce of recognition. But I'd made peace with that. I'd built my own successful marketing firm, married an incredible man named Ryan, who runs his own tech company, and carved out a life I was genuinely proud of. When the wedding invitation arrived, printed on paper so thick it could probably stop a bullet, I knew this was going to be something special. The venue was the Whitmore Estate, a $50 million property in the Hamptons with gardens that looked like they belonged in a movie. 500 guests were invited. Politicians, celebrities, business moguls, the works. I spent weeks finding the perfect dress, finally settling on this gorgeous burgundy silk number that cost more than most people's rent. But for Andrew's big day, it felt worth it. The morning of the wedding, Ryan and I drove out to the estate, and I felt this flutter of excitement in my chest. The place was absolutely breathtaking. White roses everywhere, a string quartet playing near the infinity pool, and staff in crisp uniforms attending to every detail. I thought to myself, this is it. This is going to be perfect. That's when I first saw her. Sophia. She was impossible to miss. Tall, blonde, the kind of beautiful that makes other women instinctively check their lipstick. She was wearing a stunning cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my car, and she moved through the crowd like she owned the place. At first, I assumed she was one of Caroline's friends from the modeling world or something. Caroline had mentioned she'd invited some people from her charity work, but something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but Sophia kept looking around like she was searching for someone. And when she found whoever she was looking for, her whole demeanor changed. She'd get this secretive smile, the kind you see between lovers sharing an inside joke. During the ceremony, I was seated in the third row with Ryan, close enough to see Andrew's face as Caroline walked down the aisle. He looked happy, genuinely happy, and for a moment I felt that warm feeling you get when someone you love is getting everything they've dreamed of. The vows were beautiful, the kind that make you believe in fairy tales again. Caroline looked absolutely radiant in her grandmother's vintage lace dress, and Andrew couldn't stop smiling. But I kept noticing Sophia. She was seated way in the back, which seemed odd for someone who was dressed like she belonged at the head table, and she wasn't crying happy tears like the rest of us. She was just watching, intensely, like she was memorizing every detail for some reason. After the ceremony, during cocktail hour, I excused myself to use the restroom. The manor was like a maze, with hallways lined with oil paintings that probably cost more than most people's houses. I was trying to find my way back to the reception when I heard voices coming from a side room. One of them was definitely Sophia's. That slight accent I couldn't quite place. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I swear. I was just lost and following the sound of voices, hoping someone could point me in the right direction. But then I heard her say something that made my blood run cold. I can't believe you actually went through with it, baby. Are you sure this is what you want? Baby? I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding. Who was she talking to? You know I had to, Sophia. The merger depends on this marriage, but nothing changes between us. You know that, right? My knees nearly gave out. That was Andrew's voice, my brother's voice. On his wedding day, not 30 minutes after saying I do to Caroline, he was in a private room with another woman, calling her baby and talking about how nothing would change between them. I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. Caroline was my friend too. We'd bonded over the wedding planning, and she'd been nothing but kind to me. She was upstairs right now, probably touching up her makeup and feeling like the luckiest woman in the world, while her new husband was downstairs with his mistress. I must have made some noise because suddenly the voices stopped. I heard footsteps, so I quickly hurried away, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do with this information? Tell Caroline and ruin what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life? Confront Andrew? Pretend I hadn't heard anything? By the time I made it back to the reception, dinner was being served. The ballroom was incredible. Crystal chandeliers that cast rainbows on the walls, centerpieces that looked like they belonged in a museum, and a live orchestra that made everything feel like we were in some European palace. But I couldn't enjoy any of it. Every time I looked at Andrew, raising his glass in toasts and kissing Caroline's hand, I felt that sick feeling in my stomach. Ryan kept asking if I was okay. He has this way of reading me that's almost supernatural. After 15 years together, he can tell when something's wrong before I even realize it myself. But how do you explain that you've just discovered your brother is cheating on his bride at their own wedding? I decided I needed to talk to Andrew privately. Maybe there was some explanation, maybe I'd misunderstood. So during the dancing, when Caroline was surrounded by her sorority sisters taking 1,000,000 photos, I approached him. Andrew, can I talk to you for a minute, privately? He looked annoyed, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't going to go well. Can't it wait, Melissa? I'm kind of busy being the groom here. It's important, please. We stepped out onto one of the terraces where the music was just a soft background hum and the lights from the ballroom cast everything in this golden glow. Under any other circumstances, it would have been romantic. I heard you talking to Sophia earlier, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Andrew, what's going on? His face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds: surprise, anger, calculation, and finally this cold mask I'd never seen before. I don't know what you think you heard, but you're wrong. I heard her call you baby. I heard you tell her nothing would change between you. Andrew, you just married Caroline. What are you doing? That's when he exploded. Not loudly because we were still close enough to the party that people might hear, but with this controlled fury that was almost scarier than if he'd just started yelling. You know what, Melissa? I'm so tired of this. You've always been jealous of me, of my success, of my happiness, and now you're trying to ruin my wedding day with some paranoid fantasy because you can't stand to see me happy. I felt like he'd slapped me. Andrew, that's not fair. I'm trying to help you. If you're having doubts about the marriage, the only doubt I have is whether I should cut you out of my life completely. You know how much this merger means to the family business. Caroline's family is investing $50 million in our company. And you want to sabotage that because of some conversation you think you overheard? This isn't about business, Andrew. This is about Caroline. She deserves better than this. He stepped closer, and for the first time in my life, I was actually scared of my brother. If you say one word to Caroline or anyone else about this ridiculous accusation, I will make sure you never see another dime from the family business. I'll make sure Ryan's company loses every client we've ever sent his way. Do you understand me? I was speechless. This wasn't the brother I grew up with. This was someone I didn't recognize at all. I thought so, he said when I didn't respond. Now go back inside and enjoy the party. And Melissa, stay away from Sophia. But it was too late for that advice because when we walked back into the ballroom, Sophia was standing right there, close enough that she'd definitely heard at least part of our conversation. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She knew that I knew, and she wasn't happy about it. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus on the conversations around me. Ryan kept trying to engage me, but I felt like I was underwater. I kept watching Sophia, who seemed to be having the time of her life, dancing with various guests and charming everyone she met. She was good, I'll give her that. No one would have guessed she was anything other than a perfectly appropriate wedding guest. But then, during the dessert course, she made her move. The tables were arranged in a U shape around the dance floor, and ours was right in the center, which meant we were visible to pretty much everyone in the room. All 500 guests had a perfect view of our table. Sophia approached with a bright smile, carrying a glass of red wine. "Oh my goodness, you must be Melissa," she said loudly enough that the neighboring tables could hear. "Andrew has told me so much about you. I'm Sophia. I do charity work with Caroline." The lie came so smoothly I almost believed it myself. She leaned in like she was going to give me a friendly hug, and that's when it happened. The wine went everywhere, all over my burgundy dress, splashing onto Ryan's suit, even hitting the white tablecloth. It was like slow motion. I could see the red liquid arcing through the air, could feel the cold shock as it soaked through the silk, could hear the gasps from the people around us. "Oh no!" Sophia shrieked, loud enough that half the ballroom turned to look. "Oh my God, I'm so clumsy! Your beautiful dress! I'm so sorry!" But here's the thing. As she was making this big show of apologizing and grabbing napkins, she leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "I guess some stains never come out, just like some secrets." The threat was crystal clear. She was telling me to keep my mouth shut about what I knew, and she was doing it in front of 500 people while making me look like the victim of an unfortunate accident. People started rushing over to help, offering napkins and club soda and sympathetic looks. Caroline even came over, looking genuinely distressed about my ruined dress. "Oh, Melissa, I'm so sorry. We can get you something else to wear, or maybe the dry cleaner can fix it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and tell everyone exactly who Sophia was and what she was doing, but I was surrounded by 500 people, many of whom were important business contacts, and I was covered in wine and humiliated beyond belief. "It's fine," I managed to say, even though it was the furthest thing from fine. Accidents happen. But Sophia wasn't done. As people started to go back to their conversations, she continued her performance. "I feel just terrible about this," she said, still speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "You know, some people are just so unlucky. First the dress, and I heard about your company's recent struggles too. I hope things turn around for you soon." My company wasn't struggling. Business was actually the best it had ever been. But the way she said it, with this false sympathy, made it sound like I was some charity case. I could see people at the other tables whispering, probably wondering what financial troubles she was talking about. Then she really went for the kill. "But I'm sure your husband takes good care of you. It must be nice to have someone successful to lean on when your own ventures aren't quite working out." That was it. She was attacking my marriage, my business, and my independence all at once, and doing it in a way that sounded like concern to anyone who wasn't paying close attention. I felt tears starting to form, which made me even more angry. I was not going to cry in front of 500 people because of this woman, but I didn't know what to do. Andrew was across the room, deliberately not looking in our direction. The stain was spreading across my dress and I could feel people staring. I felt completely powerless. That's when Ryan stood up. "Now you have to understand something about my husband. Ryan isn't the type to cause scenes. He's quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who thinks before he speaks and never raises his voice. But when someone he loves is being attacked, he becomes a completely different person." "Sophia, isn't it?" he said, his voice calm but carrying clearly across the nearby tables. "I don't think we've been properly introduced." She turned to him with that same bright smile, probably thinking she could charm him like she'd charmed everyone else. "Oh, you must be Ryan. I've heard wonderful things about your company." "Have you?" he asked, and there was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. He had his phone in his hand and I realized he'd been recording. "That's interesting, because I've been hearing some wonderful things about you too." Sophia's smile faltered slightly. Oh? Yes, I couldn't help but notice how familiar you seem to be with the groom's family. You must be very close to Caroline to be invited to such an intimate celebration." The way he said intimate made it clear he knew exactly what was going on. Sophia's face went pale under her perfect makeup. "I do a lot of charity work," she said, but her voice wasn't as steady as before. "That's admirable," Ryan continued, still in that same calm tone. "I'm curious, though. Which charity specifically? I'm always looking for good causes to support through my company." She fumbled for an answer, clearly caught off guard. "Well, we work with several organizations." "Of course," Ryan said smoothly. He held up his phone. "You know, I've been recording some moments from tonight for Andrew and Caroline. Would you like to see the footage from the last few minutes? It's quite interesting." The color drained completely from Sophia's face. She realized that he had recorded not just the wine incident, but her threats, her comments about my business, everything. "Actually," Ryan continued, "I think Andrew might be very interested in seeing this video. And Caroline too, of course, unless you'd prefer to explain to them yourself why you felt the need to threaten my wife at their wedding." The entire dynamic shifted in that moment. Sophia went from predator to prey in the span of about 10 seconds. She looked around frantically, probably hoping Andrew would come to her rescue, but he was still deliberately avoiding our area. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said quietly. "Oh, I don't think so," Ryan replied. "I think we understand each other perfectly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this wedding immediately. You're going to have no further contact with anyone in this family, and if I ever hear that you've bothered my wife again, this video is going straight to social media, along with some other interesting information I've managed to gather about your previous charitable endeavors." I stared at my husband in amazement. While I'd been sitting there feeling helpless, he'd been quietly gathering ammunition. He'd researched Sophia, recorded her threats, and planned his counterattack. Sophia opened her mouth like she was going to argue, but then she looked around and realized that several people at nearby tables had stopped their conversations to listen. The threat of public exposure was real, and she knew it. "Fine," she whispered, "but this isn't over." "Actually, it is," Ryan said firmly. "And just so we're clear, if anything happens to Caroline's marriage because of information that comes from anywhere other than her own discovery, you'll be hearing from lawyers as well as social media. Have a lovely evening." With that, Sophia gathered what was left of her dignity and walked away. I watched her go, straight-backed and furious but defeated. She grabbed her purse from somewhere and headed for the exit, and just like that, she was gone. The people at the nearby tables gradually went back to their conversations, probably assuming they'd just witnessed some minor wedding drama. Ryan sat back down and calmly handed me his jacket to cover the wine stain. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, and the concern in his voice almost broke me. "I don't know," I admitted. "How did you know?" "I've been watching her all night. Something about her didn't sit right with me, and when I saw how upset you were after talking to Andrew, I put 2 and 2 together. Then when she came over here with that wine, it was pretty obvious what she was doing." "You recorded everything?" He nodded. "From the moment she approached our table, I figured we might need evidence. I looked at this man I'd been married to for 15 years, and I fell in love with him all over again. While I'd been feeling helpless and alone, he'd been quietly protecting me in a way I never could have protected myself. The rest of the evening passed in a strange haze. People came over to check on me, to offer sympathy about the dress, to make sure I was okay. Several of Andrew's business associates made pointed comments about how impressed they were with Ryan's handling of the situation. Word travels fast at events like this, and it seemed like everyone had figured out that something significant had happened, even if they didn't know all the details. Andrew avoided me for the rest of the night. Caroline, bless her heart, kept apologizing for Sophia's accident and insisting on paying for my dress to be professionally cleaned. I wanted to tell her everything, but I couldn't bring myself to ruin her wedding night. She looked so happy, so radiant, and I couldn't be the one to take that away from her. As the evening wound down and guests started to leave, Ryan and I said our goodbyes. Caroline hugged me tightly and thanked me for being there. Andrew shook Ryan's hand and managed to mumble something that might have been an apology, though his eyes were cold. On the drive home, I finally broke down. All the emotion I'd been holding in all night came pouring out: anger at Andrew, sadness for Caroline, frustration at my own helplessness, but mostly overwhelming gratitude for Ryan. "I don't know what I would have done without you tonight," I told him through my tears. "You would have figured it out," he said. "You're stronger than you think, but you shouldn't have to handle something like that alone." 3 weeks later, Caroline called me. She'd found some text messages on Andrew's phone and wanted to know if I knew anything about a woman named Sophia. I told her everything, and she filed for divorce 6 weeks after that. The marriage lasted less than 2 months. The family business survived, but barely. Caroline's family pulled their investment, and Andrew had to scramble to find other funding. He blamed me, of course, but by then I didn't care. Ryan was right. I was stronger than I thought, and I didn't need Andrew's approval or the family business to validate my worth. Looking back now, I realize that night taught me something crucial about family and loyalty. The family you choose, the people who stand by you when things get ugly, who protect you when you can't protect yourself, who love you not because they have to but because they want to. That family is worth more than any blood relation or business deal. Ryan didn't just save me from embarrassment that night, he showed me what it looks like when someone truly has your back. He reminded me that I'm not alone in this world, that I have someone who will fight for me even when I can't fight for myself. And that, more than any revenge against Sophia or vindication against Andrew, was the real gift of that terrible, wonderful night. That day taught me that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Ryan didn't just save me from embarrassment in front of 500 people, he showed me what real partnership looks like. Have you ever had someone stand up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about love, loyalty, and finding your strength. Until next time, remember, you deserve people in your life who will fight for you when you can't fight for yourself.